It can bring your fears to life. A Marvel fanfiction written on AO3 by Derpmallow. Tony wanders through the streets of New York with tired eyes. The world is a mess of ash and fire and grief all around him. Rubble from crashed cars and downed airplanes surround him. The destruction of the rivals that battled New York all those years ago, and yet this is so much worse. Tony had known it then. The worst had been coming. What he thought had been nothing like this. His dreams could never conjure up such horrors. And he thought he'd seen it all. He thought he'd seen the worst of it. After all, his own mind had been his greatest enemy since as far as he could remember. But what could be worse than that? Tony wished it had stayed what it had been before. A question. Unanswered, unknown. The truth was always the scariest part of living, and it took Tony far too long to realize that. Wind sweeps around him and in the near empty streets. Families, or what's left of them, walk in close groups. A man sits alone on the curb and drinks straight from a bottle of scotch, staring at the flame-ridden sky with a blank stare. It kind of reminds him of Peter. Peter, staring at the sky above him, hands tight around Tony's arms, gaze pleading, "I don't want to go! I don't want to go!" His eyes flicker to meet Tony's own. Please, he wants to scream. To Peter, to the universe. "Don't take him from me. I'm sorry," he whispers, and he's gone, 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 gone. Tony's hand slams through the dust of the child's body. He doesn't scream because he can't. He can't get anything out. Doesn't know if he ever will again. He shakes his head. Don't think about it. Not now. He walks further throughout the city. Half wonders if he'll get mugged, since there's no Spider-Man to stop it. Iron Man getting mugged? Now I have seen everything. Someone grabs him by the shoulder. Tony's about to punch them, but they talk first. "Tommy?" A woman wails, shaking a paper in Tony's face. A young boy, no more than 10, with olive skin and jet black hair, stares back at him. "Tommy!" She wails again, shaking the paper more intensely. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I haven't seen him." She wails again, a harsh sob, before releasing his arm and falling to her knees. Tony slows her fall, but no one bats an eye. It's a story they've all seen 100 times over. He stays by her side for 30 minutes, but no one comes and her sobs don't stop, so he just walks away. It feels wrong, if he's honest, but he doesn't seem to notice. If she does, she doesn't stop crying to tell him so. He stops in front of a big wall, covered in posters. It goes on forever, up, up, left to right. The posters overlap one another. The faces fighting to be noticed, fighting to be brought home. Tony wishes he'd been better. Good enough that this wall would never have existed. That Peter would be right next to him right now. That everything would be okay. Peter looks over to him, tips of his hair singed, goggles burnt back. "We are in so much trouble," he says in the silent lab. "For a tiny explosion?" "Tiny? Mr. Stark, you are in denial." Tony looks around, taking in the destruction with a defeated sigh. Peter snorts, then giggles again, and soon he's doubled over with laughter, looking happier than Tony's ever seen him. "What's so funny?" Tony asks, through laughter of his own, because if Peter couldn't get Tony laughing, who could? "What a way to go out, you know?" Peter says, eyes gleaming, with joy or tears Tony'll never know. Being killed by the pure decibels of Pepper's yelling. That in itself was enough to start a fit of giggling between the two. By the time Pepper finds them, she can't even be mad, despite how little Tony's efforts to clean up have gone, because he looks so happy, and who is Pepper to take that from her two favorite people? Tony walks back into the tower, picking his way across empty streets. Perhaps one day Peter will be home, and Tony will feel whole again, with his child tucked between his arms once more. And finally, Tony will be brave enough to call it a home.